everybody, my name is Charity and welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. I hope that you stick around long enough to finish this video, as well as consider subscribing to my channel. So today I would like to do a 2020 wrap up with you guys. So I've got my StoryGraph profile open so I can read some stats to you guys, and I'll show you some stats over here and take you through all the books that I've read. So in 2020 I read a total of 27 books, and that totaled to 9,566 pages. Okay, and in terms of moods, out of the 27 books that I read, 16 of them were emotional, 15 were reflective, 5 were mysterious, 5 were challenging, 5 were adventurous, probably the fantasies that I read, 4 were inspiring, 4 were dark, 3 were intense, 3 were hopeful, 3 was funny, 2 was sad, 1 was light-hearted, and there was 1 that was informative. And if we look at the pacing of the book, 8 of the books that I read were slow-paced, 14 of them were medium-paced, and then 5 of the books I read were fast-paced. And then in terms of page numbers, 7 of the books that I read were under 300 pages, 17 of them were under 500 pages, or between 300 and 500 pages, and then 3 of them were more than 500 pages, the chunkers. In terms of how many books I read that were fiction and non-fiction, 5 of them were non-fiction and 21 of them were fiction. So that just lets you know what kind of reader I am. Looking at the genres that I read, 8 of them were young adult, which was the biggest contributor to my reading. I actually realized that I enjoy young adult a lot, and I'm going to continue with reading young adults in 2021 as well. 5 of the books that I read were fantasies, 4 of them were literary fiction, 3 of the books I read were memoirs, 2 of them had LGBTQIA+ representation, which I actually want to do better of this year. I want to read more books that represent LGBTQIA+ community. 2 of the books were self-help, 2 of them were science fiction, 2 of them were mysteries, 1 was a children's book, 1 was a classic. I read 1 thriller, I read 1 poetry book, I read 1 philosophy book, I read 1 historical fiction, I read 1 biography, and 1 autobiography. In terms of star rating, 13 of the books that I read were 5 stars. Then 2 of them were 4.5 stars, 6 were 4 stars, 2 were 3.5 stars, and 2 of them were 3 stars. I don't have any book that I've read that was less than 3 stars. Well, I guess except for the book that I DNF'd, but then it's not part of the 27 books that I count as being read and completed in 2020. So I'm not going to even go there, I'm not even going to talk about it. And yeah, so now let's get into the books that I actually read in 2020. So the first book that I read was The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robert Sharma, and I rated the book 4 stars. I think it was a good book. It was a good motivational book. It definitely did make me want to reconsider some of the things that I was doing in my life and how to do it better. So yeah. The next book that I read was Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and I rated 4 stars. That was the second book that I read from Chimamanda, I think. It wasn't my favorite out of the 2. I rated it 4 stars because I felt like it did not come together in the end. It did not come together. I thought it was gonna go in one direction, and then it just went sideways. I just didn't understand why the main character had to do certain things that she decided to do. But yeah, nonetheless, it was a great book to read, so I rated it 4 stars. The next book that I read was Hold, and this was by Michael Doncourt. This was a book about friendship. However, I did not really enjoy the book as much. It was okay. I gave it 3 stars. I think it could have done better. I feel like the ending was just, it didn't make sense at all. The ending just didn't make sense. I didn't understand why it ended like that. It was like we were missing another 50 pages so that you let us know where the protagonist was going and what happened to her life overseas. Is she going back? Is she not going back? Where is she going now? Is she going to look for a family? Nobody knows. And yeah, it wasn't the easiest to read as well, because the main character was still trying to get an education and still learning, and her English is not her primary language, so, and obviously the book is written in English, so it was written in kind of the broken English, if I can call it that, which was a clever thing actually. You could see that as the book was going, the English was getting better, so I actually thought that was clever. I liked that about the book, but the whole storyline just didn't come together. No, it did not. And yeah, so the next book that I read was The Testaments, and this was by Margaret Atwood, and this is actually a sequel to The Handmaid's Tale, which I actually have not read, but I'm watching the series, and that is the reason why I didn't want to read The Handmaid's Tale, because I didn't want any spoilers to the series, because it's like one of my favorite series. So I decided to read The Testaments. All the book was on sale. I bought it and I just wanted to know, but it doesn't have any spoilers or much. It doesn't have much spoilers to The Handmaid's Tale, so it was fine. And I really enjoyed the book. I really enjoyed the story, and I gave the book 5 stars. The next book that I read was probably literally my favorite book of 2020, because up to this day I cannot stop thinking about the book. I don't plan on rereading any books, but if I had to reread a book, this would be the book that I reread. It was really, really good, and that is An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. I obviously definitely gave this a 5 stars. It was, yeah, I haven't read a book as fast as I read this one. I just wanted to keep turning the pages. Like, it was gripping me, it was emotional, it was heartbreaking. There were some few happy moments, and there were moments where you're like, yes, we won finally, but then things don't go your way. It's not like it's not one of the books that has a typical happy ending, but then at the same time you're like, screw it, it's fine, I'll take this ending, because it actually maybe makes some sense, but I don't like anybody. I don't like anybody. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I would definitely reread this book. The next book that I read was Inferno by Dan Brown. I love the movie adaptations of these books, of Dan Brown's books. Inferno, Angels and Demons. What was that one? I don't know. But I've got a couple of Dan Browns. I have like 3. I've got about 4 Dan Brown books that I still need to read, that maybe I'll get to reading this year. But I enjoyed that book. It was a mystery book. I got to learn a little bit as well, so it was really fun. I gave the book 5 stars. And the next book that I read was Patsy by Nicole Dennis Ben, and this was such a fun book to read, even though at some point I really didn't like the protagonist, because I'm like, how can you just leave your child? How can you just abandon your child? I don't know, maybe as a mother I just didn't understand her decisions, but I tried to understand it. I think, let me say this, and at some point I did understand her reason for needing to leave Wish, kind of, but I did not understand her reason for staying away or not being in communication with her daughter, even though things didn't really pan out the way that she thought they would when she got to the other country. So yeah, I did not like her decisions, but I did enjoy the book. The book did grip me, which is why I gave it 5 stars. The next book that I read was More Than Enough by Elaine Walteroth. I gave this book 4 stars. I think it was a good book. I guess it's a memoir. Is it a memoir? I guess it is. And also kind of like a self-help. I realized that I'm not big on reading self-help books. They really put me in a reading slump, especially if I feel like I cannot relate to the message that you tried to relate to me. So I've made the decision to keep some of her books as books that I will consume via audiobook, and that's that. But it was nice to read this book. I did learn a few things from this book. It is kind of difficult to give a review on a self-help book. So what I try to do with this specific book on my Bookstagram is actually quote some of my favorite lines from the book, and I called it a book appreciation instead of a book review, because I don't want to tear apart somebody's life and say whether it was good or not good. It's not up to me to say that. But anyway, the next book that I read was Grownups by Marian Keyes, and this was my first experience with her writing, and I actually really enjoyed this book. This book was really, really fun. It was a chunker. It was a huge book, but I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It was big for a reason, because we followed a whole bunch of people's lives and storylines, and it made sense. It didn't feel draggy or anything. But yeah, I really loved reading it. The next book that I read was Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi, followed by Children of Virtue and Vengeance, also by Tomi Adeyemi. This is part of a trilogy, a series called Legacy of Orisha, and I gave both books 5 stars. They were one of my favorite fantasies that I read in 2020, even though I didn't really read a lot. I read like 5 fantasy books, but yeah, it was my introduction to fantasy, because I actually never read fantasy before. Don't shoot me, don't ask me why. It's okay, I'm getting into it, okay? But yeah, I read the books, and I read the books and I really enjoyed them, and I gave it 5 stars. The 2 left us on such a cliffhanger. Like, at this point, I don't know what's gonna happen. I can't even predict what's gonna happen. I have no idea. The protagonist has no idea what is going on. I thought, okay, we're wrapping this up in a nice tight bow, but no, that's not what happened. So we wait for the 3rd book that I don't even know when that's getting released. I don't even know if it's a title yet. I think on Goodreads it says untitled. But yeah, looking forward to that. I gave that 5 stars. The next book that I read was The Way I See It by Lerato Chabalala, and this is a South African author. I gave this book 5 stars. This book was funny. It was so on point. It was real. I could relate to almost everything that was said in the book. I loved it. I really loved it. And she's very honest, and she's very not scared to say exactly how she feels. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. It talks about South African cultures and being Black in South Africa, and how people of other races within South Africa speak to Black South Africans, and without actually realizing that some of the things you're saying could be racist or prejudiced, or it's just not cool to say. But yeah, it was really fun to read. It was really insightful. It was really funny. I could relate to everything. Like it was I loved it. I enjoyed it. The next book that I read was The Color Purple, and this is by Alice Walker. I was actually really afraid to read this book because I do not like watching movies based on slavery or anything like this. Like I've never watched Django. I do not even ever want to watch Django. I don't know if I'll actually even watch The Color Purple, but I decided to give reading it a go, and I read the first few pages, and then I closed the book and put it away for a couple of weeks because I felt I felt like I just couldn't take it. And then one day, some weeks later, I decided to revisit the book. I'm like, okay, fine, let me just give it a try. And I read it, and it actually got better. I could handle it. I thought I wouldn't be able to handle it. I thought I would be sobbing the whole time. I did cry, but it wasn't through the entire book. There were actually some parts that I found to be funny, and actually enjoyed the book to a point that I gave it 5 stars. So yay for me for persevering. The next book that I will talk about is Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. I think this was one of my favorite YAs that I read in 2020. It was heartbreaking. I cried in the end. I really cried, but I think it was such an important story to tell, and this is definitely one book that I would like to reread. I actually had borrowed this book, so I need to get myself my own copy so that I can reread this book. And yeah, and it's one of those books when you're reading it, you actually have to, it's written in chapters. I don't think it has chapter names, but then it keeps taking you in the future and then backward and then current and so on. So you have to like really keep up with that. So that got a little confusing for me in the beginning, but I got caught up. But then it's very important because in the end it's like, wait, where am I now and what is going on? But yeah, I'd reread this book. Definitely, I need to get myself a copy. The next book that I read was Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. I gave this book 4 stars. It was 3.5. What did I give it? Let's see. This thing doesn't, this Goodreads doesn't actually give us stars, but let's just run it off. I gave it 4 stars. I think the story is important. It wasn't perfect. I got angry in the book when the colonizers arrived, and you see how everything got changed, and how the African people, the community in that region, were starting to lose some of their beliefs and all that, and how they were made to feel lesser than. I got angry. I really got angry, and I actually had to give myself like a couple of days into a week before I did a review on this book, because I wanted to do a review where I was calm and not angry and getting mad at the wrong people. So yeah, but I gave it 4 stars. The next book that I read was The Stardust Sea by Erin Morgenstern. This was one of my favorite, books that I read in 2020. However, I only gave it 4.5 stars. Yeah, I gave it 4.5 stars, and that was because the ending felt a little bit flat and draggy. It was not necessary to drag those two boys around. For what reason, I don't know. It was just, I felt like it was a little bit unnecessary, but overall I enjoyed the book. The book really captured my attention the whole time. I wanted to keep reading. It is one of the books as well that doesn't have chapter numbers, but it's a book about books, so there's like little stories that you have to be following, and then we see how all of those come together into the main story, and it was mind-blowing. I loved it. I love these kind of books. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars. It was one of my favorites. The next book that I read was Full Disclosure by Cameron Garrett. This is one of those books that I feel like was really, really important. It follows our protagonist who's HIV positive, and she just moved to a new school, and she left her old school because everybody found out about her status and started treating her differently, and she needed to be in a better space. So she was trying to do better at keeping this a secret, because we know how kids and young people are, and especially in high school there's a lot of bullying. So she's trying to navigate life in school. She's trying to navigate a new relationship, but then one day she receives a letter in her locker with somebody basically saying that they know their secret and they're gonna expose her. And yeah, so we just see her going through that journey, and there's a lot to learn from that. Like, I feel like even if you think you know all that you know about HIV, there's still something that you can learn from this book, and I definitely did. And I give this book a 5 star. I gave this book 5 stars. The next book that I read was The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, and I gave this book 5 stars. This was my first experience at a book written in poetry, or slam poetry in this case, and it was brilliant. I really, really enjoyed it. I went through this book so quickly. I'm hearing that the audiobook is actually really good because she reads it, so the emotions are there with it, and yeah, I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. The next book that I read is With the Fire on High, also by Elizabeth Acevedo, and I gave that book 4 stars. It wasn't as great as The Poet X, but I think it was still a fun read. I enjoyed the book. I could predict the storyline, where the book is going, so there were no surprises there. There were no special plots or turn of events, nothing like that. But yeah, I really did enjoy it, and I reread Becoming by Michelle Obama via audiobook, and it was actually, I feel like it might have been better than reading the actual book. So I really, really enjoyed it. That was my first experience with audiobook, so definitely, and this is why I'm definitely going back to that, and this is why I said that I think I'm gonna consume memoirs, autobiographies, biographies via audiobooks. I think that's the best way to do it for me, as well as self-help books. But when it comes to the Obamas, I'm definitely gonna buy the physical book as well. So I still need to get myself Barack Obama's latest book. So yeah, obviously I give it 5 stars. If I could give it more stars, I'd give it more stars, because it's brilliant. It's going to be one of those books that you'd want to read every single year, and I'm down for that. The next book that I actually read, also via audiobook, is Border Crime by Trevor Noah. This was also a read for me. It is one of those books that I really enjoyed reading, and hearing it on audiobook as well. It brought those memories back, and it was so funny. This book is so funny. I was giggling the whole time. I was just having the best. I was having the best time, and obviously I gave that 5 stars. The next book that I read was A River of Royal Blood, and that was by Amanda Joy. This is another fantasy following 2 sisters who are destined to fight to the death to be on the throne. And yeah, so it follows one of the sisters, and we see what her journey looks like. And this is actually the first book in the series. Yeah, the series is called A River of Royal Blood as well. So 4th book in the series, and I can't wait to get the 2nd book to continue the story. There was a bit of a shocker at the end. I did not expect it, and yeah, so I'm looking forward to the next one, and I gave this book 4 stars. The next book that I read was The House with the Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson. This is a middle grade book. It was so fun. I enjoyed it. I think this is definitely one of those books that I'm keeping for my daughter to read when she becomes of age, which is still a long way to go. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. It was really fun, and it was really sweet, but at the same time it was a little bit heartbreaking, because this book deals with grief and death is the whole theme of the book, I guess. So yeah, I give it 4 stars. I also read A Family Affair by Sue Nyati. I gave this book 5 stars. This book is a lot. There's a lot that happened in the book that I actually want to talk about in a separate video. I will do a review of this book hopefully very soon. Yeah, but this book deals with rape. This book deals with domestic violence. This book deals with emotional abuse, physical abuse, everything that you can think of. It's there in this book. There's so much drama. There is so much drama in this book, and it's heartbreaking. There were a couple of times where after reading a certain sentence, I just had to close the book. I had to close the book and put it away because I needed a moment to breathe. I needed a moment to recenter myself before going back into it. Because yeah, this book is I think somewhere at the back of the book it says hashtag, or in the front it says hashtag men are trash. And yeah, basically every man in that book is definite trash, maybe with the exception of one. But in the back of my mind the whole time I was like, I don't trust you, you're just gonna be like all the others. But yeah, anyway, I will do a review on that book. I gave it 5 stars. I really did enjoy the book. The next book that I read was Queenie, that I recently actually finished. I haven't done a review for it yet. I think I'll probably do a review on my BookedonCharity in the next couple of days. So please head over there and follow me on my BookedonCharity so you can see what I post. I post on that platform quite frequently, more frequent than my BookTube. So I would appreciate if you could just head over there and give me a follow and look out for my upcoming reviews. I gave Queenie 4 stars. I had some issues with Queenie. She was not my favorite. She made some very bad decisions, and I think in the end I kind of understood where she was coming from, but it still didn't justify her decisions. I still feel like she could have just, you know, made better decisions, but I guess that is the character that she is, and that's the story that the author needed to tell. And yeah, I gave the book 4 stars. I still think that it was a good book. she just didn't make me happy. But one of her best friends was just my fave. Cheske was just my favorite. She was funny. She's just like, I wanna chill and hang out with you because you're the one. You are the one. Let me see. Did I go through everything? Oh, I forgot. The other book that I read wasn't last one. Okay, so another book that I read in 2020 was Binti, and this is by Nedi Okorafor. I gave this book 3 stars. I think it might have actually been 2.5, but I rounded it off to 3 stars, obviously, on Goodreads. I did not really enjoy Binti. I felt like it was lacking a lot. I felt that those 100 pages of the book belonged in like the first 2 chapters of a book, and I was missing 2-3 more other chapters. So I feel like there wasn't a lot that was told in the story. I just needed more of the story. It did not grip me, did not keep me going. Like, it took me so long just to read those 100 pages, and that's not a good sign. And I only actually figured out at the end of reading Binti that it is part of a series. And so yeah, I will continue with the series and see how it goes. Maybe it gets better. I'm probably on like the lower end of the people who actually review this book. I'm probably one of the few people who like, it wasn't that great, but I'm still gonna read the rest of the series and see how it goes. And the final book that I read in 2020 was The Vanishing Half, and I gave that 5 stars. That was, it was one of those books that was, it was a little bit heavy. It concentrates a lot on colorism, following 2 sisters who are mixed race, but they are on the lighter side of, in terms of skin tone, and so they come from this small town where only people who are mixed race and are really light are living, and they only accept people like that. And it's a community where the aim is just to become more and more lighter and lighter as they go, as the generation goes. So it's like, if you marry within the community, it's okay, and if you marry white, even better, because now you're gonna just keep making yourself and your children lighter and lighter. So the goal is just to be white, basically. And we follow these 2 sisters where they actually run away from their town, and one of them decides to continue living as a black woman, and the other twin decides to continue her life as a white woman, and it's a big secret for her to keep. And yeah, we see how she navigates that life. But yeah, it was a really good book. I really enjoyed it. I give it 5 stars. That's all the books that I read in 2020. Thank you for sticking around for this long. I know this video is like really long, but thank you for sticking around. I hope that you enjoyed my video, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below, and please consider subscribing to my channel. I've also left links to my BookedonCharity account down below, as well as my Goodreads. I am going to add my the StoryGraph as well below. I don't know if any of you are using StoryGraph, but I like it. I prefer it over Goodreads, but most of the community, I think, is in Goodreads, so I've got both. Also have my Amazon wishlist, as well as my Takealot Wishlist down below if you wish to support me in that way. Thank you so much, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Bye.